Don't play with it, don't be dishonest. Ay, still not understanding.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we'll be looking at evolution. I have here on the screen subtopics related to this topic. It's quite long. So today we'll only be looking at an introduction to evolution, like key terminologies that you should familiarize yourself with, and maybe a little bit of information. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So first and foremost, we need to define the term evolution, which simply means change over time. So in simple terms, species are changing over time. And when we say change, we're not talking about 5, 10 years, 20 years. We're talking about millions of years. In this case, think back to what you were doing in grade 10 when you did history of life. You're going to need that pre-information that you got from then. Now, the term evolution refers to the theory of change over time. It is studied by two important scientists that we look at, Darwin and Lamarck. So because evolution is a theory, we must understand what a theory is. So a theory is an explanation of something that has been observed in nature and can be supported by facts. In general, it just simply means a hypothesis that has been tested. So let's write the definition down. Now, because we're looking at hypothesis, we must know what a hypothesis is. This is a statement about an observation that has not yet been tested. Now that we've written that down, it is important for you to know the difference between a hypothesis and a theory as stated in the exam guidelines. Remember, we're trying to understand why evolution is a theory and not just a hypothesis. Now, there's a key term that we call biological evolution. So biological evolution is any genetic change in a population that is inherited and becomes a characteristic that population, or a characteristic of that population rather, over several generations. Now, when you look at your definition, there's a term there, population. You should understand what a population is as opposed to a species. These are two different terms. I like to start with species. So species are organisms with similar characteristics and are able to interbreed to produce a fertile offspring. And a fertile offspring is just an offspring that is able to continue reproducing. While a population, these are organisms of the same species occupying the same habitat and at the same time. So we've looked at some key terminologies that we are going to be using over this topic, but let's look at why evolution is supported. It is supported because there is evidence to show that this is a theory and not just a hypothesis. So we have 3 evidence for evolution, that is fossil evidence, biogeography, as well as genetics. I'm just going to separate that into 3 categories and we'll look at each one individually. Starting with fossils. Fossils are remains of dead matter that are preserved in rocks. You did that in grade 10. While biogeography is the study of the distribution of different life forms in the different parts of the world, bio means life, geography means land or the world. And by now you should know that genetics is the study of heredity. Now let's have a look at fossil evidence. We say that fossils are preserved in rocks. What happens here? Scientists studies or a scientist studies these fossils, and they came up with this term called descent with modification, or some textbooks call it modification by descent. This simply means that structures have been modified over time. We have what we call homologous structures. These are structures across different organisms or different species. The structures are similar, but they perform different functions. So if you look at the hand of a human being and the wings of a bird, they have some similarities there, but they perform different functions. Now with biogeography, on the other hand, it's more of common ancestry between organisms that are found in completely different parts of the world. Like in South Africa, we have an ostrich. In Australia, we have an emu. These are flightless birds that have similar characteristics, but they are completely different species. So in grade 10, you spoke about continental drift and why we have such organisms that are far apart, but they have similar characteristics. Scientists, in this case, when they study evolution, they are proving that these organisms share common ancestry. Genetics, on the other hand, helps us see the similarities in the genetic point of view, like the structure of the DNA, sequences of nitrogenous bases, as well as mitochondrial DNA, which helps us to understand mutations. Mutations are what is different across the structure of the DNA of different organisms, which then will help us to determine when the separation actually occurred from the common ancestor to what we have now. Now, organisms show a great deal of variations. Although they have similarities, they are still different. Even within the same species, there is a lot of differences. So can you imagine across different species? Now, what causes variation? In the examination guidelines, we look at meiosis, crossing over at prophase 1, random arrangements of chromosomes at the equator during metaphase. We also have random fertilization, so it is not set in stone which sperm cell will fertilize the ovum. We look at random mating. We don't know who your mating partner will be. And lastly, again, mutations. So mutations still contribute to how species are different. So here we look at 4 of what causes variation. But variation is important. Let's look at the why. Why is variation important? When there is a high degree of variation among species, it increases chances of survival of the offspring. This particular statement is very important in understanding why we look at Darwin's theory of natural selection. So we will end here for now. See you on the next video.